This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
This episode contains references to suicidal ideation and might be disturbing for some listeners. Please take care.
And the more I used it to cope with the world around me, the more I needed to use it.
Of course. So for you, gambling was a relief.
It was almost like self-medicating.
Yes.
Like someone would do with alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
But I found what I thought was a safer option. I was getting the same escape, but it wasn't safe at all because it hurt me in the same ways, but in a different way.
And do you remember... Welcome to She Wasn't Born Yesterday, the pod that fearlessly chats about all things affecting us ladies who are 40 plus fabulous.
Well, and the guys that want to know what we think.
Well, them too. I'm Janet Evans, advertising creative.
And I'm Jenny Woodhouse, semi-retired social worker.
In other words, you're busier than ever. We're J&J and we're super thrilled you're with us for She Wasn't Born Yesterday. Gorgeous, these days we cannot go to any sports match or watch any sports on TV without seeing gambling ads.
I've noticed every single time I watch sport on TV.
I know, right? It's some app or it could be signage that's all around the stadium and it sponsors logos on
jackets,
jerseys,
on caps.
Yes. And the ads are all about betting with your mates and having a great time and, you know, with a little disclaimer at the end that says, imagine what you could be buying instead, you know. Have you seen that on?
I haven't.
Yeah, well, exactly. Everyone ignores it. So, or even if you're just walking down the street, you know, every pub or club has like a VIP lounge, open 24 hours, very convenient. Or newsagents are selling scratchies.
24/7.
Not to mention our iconic Aussie gambling events every year.
Which are?
2 Up and the race that stops a nation.
Oh, of course.
So it's part of Aussie national pride, isn't it?
Identity.
But as a nation, it is no wonder that we are, in fact, the biggest losers.
Are we?
Because per capita, Australians lose more through gambling than any other country in the world, to the tune of $31.5 billion a year. That's lose. And to put that in context, our government spends $31.1 billion on education. So we lose a lot more in form of gambling throughout Australia each year. I mean, it is very, very sobering. But I think we know that the cost of gambling is much higher than that.
Yes.
Because chatting with us today, we have 2 40-plus fabulous ladies who have very courageously agreed to share their stories with us about how they became addicted to gambling, how this has impacted them and their loved ones, and in fact, how they've turned their lives around. Caroline and Kelly, welcome to She Wasn't Born Yesterday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
So much. First of all, I mean, it must be a very, very difficult thing to admit that you have had an addiction to something, and especially gambling, because there seems to be a particular stigma around that. Would that be right? And what's your take on all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's still a lot of education that needs to be done around a gambling addiction. It almost seems that we're in comparison to drugs or alcohol, which is much more accepted. And almost if someone declares, you know, I'm a recovering alcoholic or I'm a recovering drug addict, there's celebration, like, well done, good on you. But if you mention, you know, I'm a gambling addict, it almost reflects character, you know, because people don't understand that the addiction of gambling is not one of greed. It is one of insecurities and an emotional.
It's a social and emotional well-being issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, what do you mean? So, because I've been wondering, like, what is it about gambling? What's behind it that people want from gambling? And I always assume that it must be greed or hope of some sort. So you're always hoping for the next big thing, which is going to solve all of your problems. Is that right, or is that not really quite right?
I think that in a lot of literature we talk about the dream world of a compulsive gambler that would address the stuff about, you know, buying expensive and luxury things and the big shotism and, you know, being able to pay for meals for everyone and take people on holidays and stuff like that. There's also a lot of people, more people that use gambling as an escape, as avoidance, traumatic experiences, especially in my case, and that's how the addiction unravels. So it can differ from case to case, but it's definitely not an addiction of greed. Most people think it is financial, but for me, my gambling was not about the big win. The value of money and the money that I gambled was all about time in escape. So the more money I won, the more money that went in, the longer I could spend there in front of a poker machine, forgetting about the life that had hurt me so immensely.
So how does, sorry Caroline, just stick with you for a minute, how does a trauma background get helped by a gambling addiction? How does it ease a trauma background?
It's definitely the escapism. So when you're gambling, you got the lights, the sounds. It's very isolating as well. For me, gambling started socially. It ended very anti-socially, very isolated, very secretive as well. So with especially the post-traumatic stress disorder, so all the flashbacks and all the memories, with the focus being on the poker machines, there's something about the chemistry that just shut my brain down. So away from poker machines, my brain was constant. My brain telling me to go and kill yourself, the thoughts of suicide, planning it, that maybe I could do it this way, maybe I could do it that way, the memories of the trauma, those experiences, any disappointment, any frustration, any hurt, any pain, it was all internalized, and I would escape by going and playing the pokies. The moment that I sat down and I was there, I was focused on that and nothing else was happening in my brain. And the more I used it to cope with the world around me, the more I needed to use it.
Of course. So for you, gambling was a relief.
It was almost like self-medicating.
Yes.
Like someone would do with alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
But I found what I thought was a safer option. I was getting the same escape, but it wasn't safe at all because it hurt me in the same ways, but in a different way.
And do you remember when you first went in, how you felt when you had your first experience of, so it was the pokies that you chose?
Pokies and casino were my two big ones. So for me, I don't remember the first time I gambled, and it's probably related to your intro because it was so ingrained in the culture, in the family, in the friends unit. So we might go down to the RSL for lunch or for dinner, and then everyone would just automatically make their way into the poker machines area to try their luck. So that's what I mean. It started very socially.
Right. And for you, Kelly, how did it start for you?
Same. It was very progressive. It's something that I grew up with. It started going to the races with my dad, him asking me pick a horse, pick a number.
Colour of the silks.
The colour, all of that sort of stuff. Going to bingo, playing bingo with the bingo ladies and watching people buy scratchy tickets, going to Time Zone as a kid.
So many choices.
All of these things that activate the brain's reward system. And you just think that those things are so normal that it's okay because everybody's doing it. And you don't see the harm as a child that that's doing. When you grow up to, I guess, in a bit of poverty, you just accept that that's normal as well. Not having new shoes like everybody else is like normal kind of thing. You don't realise as you get older the impacts that that's actually going to have on you. But I do remember my actual first gambling experience where I actually enjoyed the process as an adult. And I remember, I was a young mum, I had 2 young children and I was only 19 years old and, we went in and, I was actually 22.
I was doing the maths thinking,
22.
Whoa.
I was 22 and I'd met a friend at work and she said to me, would you like to come down and to the club and play the pokies? And I was like, I haven't really done that. I did try it when I turned 18, but I wasn't interested.
Right.
But something different happened this time when I went with my friend and we went, and back then it used to be coined, $1 coins, and you could put $1 coins into the little slot thing. And, I had $30 worth of $1 coins and we'd put them in and we won $75. And that was really exciting. And we were there for a long time. We were there for about 4 hours. So we had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea what buttons we were pressing. And 7 cents each time was like amazing. It was exciting and I had someone to do it with and I just really had a really good time and really enjoyed myself. I didn't realise that was going to be the setup to my demise, my downfall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. So what happened subsequently? did you decide to go each week?
Well, it was a progressive thing. It was something that, okay, well, I'm going to save up all my $1 coins, and once a month we're going to go hang out and we're going to go down the club and we're going to have a girls' night out.
Yeah.
And it goes from once a month to every weekend to I'm now, every time I get paid, self-isolating on my own in a venue in front of a poker machine. Right. My husband has no idea where I am. Right. My kids probably have no idea where I am. And you justify that by, but I've paid the rent and I've paid the electricity and I've paid all of these bills. And that's just in the early stages of addiction. Right.
Yeah.
You know?
So it was almost your form of relaxation and you time.
Yeah, you justify it.
You justify it, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So it was progressive and it was a form of escapism. There was lots of things going on in the family home and I was a young mum and I didn't know how to cope with that, you know, and I also had other addictions prior to that. So I literally swapped out those other addictions for gambling. It was like, I can't afford to do those things and I don't want to be a drug addict or an alcoholic and I don't want to be labelled with that. But gambling's socially acceptable and people don't care if you gamble, so I'll just go and gamble and no one will know and no one will care.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, no one knows, do they? Because it's not like you're affected, you're intoxicated, you're stumbling over things.
No, it's a very secretive addiction, very secretive. It's very easy to keep it hidden.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a partner that's checking bank statements and stuff like that, you can sort of hide it for a very long period of time.
So when does it tip over from, hey, this is a lot of fun, to, well, I think I might have a problem. This is addiction. Where is the crossover?
There's no finite time frame because it is very progressive, and I think it's very individual how quickly it gets there. And it could be things like how much money you've got access to or what lengths you go to get money. That can either speed up or slow down the process, but it's inevitable. You get there. So for me, I think it was like what Kelly was saying, when it tips from paying your bills first and then with your surplus going and gambling and also doing that with your friends. So for me, it was when I started going on my own and I got comfortable going on my own. I wasn't embarrassed or ashamed to go on my own anymore. Because, you know, what young woman goes into a club on a weekday by herself?
Plenty, I think.
Well, they do now, absolutely, but I didn't think so. Yeah, right. So when I got comfortable going by myself, it escalated to doing that daily and exhausting, you know, my wages practically on the day that I got paid. And some days I would actually stay until after midnight so that I could access the remainder because it's tipped over, you know, that limit on how much you can withdraw.
Oh, okay.
Reset.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So in some days, by the next morning, I'd gone through my whole wage. And it went from not paying my bills first and then gambling with the surplus. It was gamble first, worry about everything else later. So all the money that I had access to was gambling money, and that's what I would use it for.
Right. Did either of you ever get an enormous win to the point where you thought, oh, yeah, I can leave it there now?
Oh, I did. Did you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But, you know, it was never really a win because that's only temporary.
Yeah, you just return it. It just goes straight back
you just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard recently, not that recently, but there's an Australian guy who's the world legend in programming poker machines to specifically get your brain working in particular ways that trigger certain things and certain movements.
At the same time.
And like the music at strategic times. And he said people often choose their favourite machine and designed to take your money. Absolutely. It's just a lot of
social science, psychoscience behind it, a lot of mathematics behind it. They're actually quite advanced. They employ people to come in and play the machines so that they can analyse human behaviour and design these machines, even down to where you sit in the chair and you put your hand on the button, where you put your drink.
My goodness, how would you fill in the employment? You know,
what do you do for a living? I cheat people out of their entire lives. You know, I ruin lives.
Test drive gambling machines. Wow,
and
that's incredible.
Caroline, how did that start to affect you? Because if you were running out of money like early in your, you know, play cycle, what were you doing? How did you survive? How did you make ends meet?
You get very creative.
Right.
You get very creative, and you also, for me, I then started to access things like payday loans, hock whatever I could hock, and then, you know, depending on whether I could would get it back out, and pay the loan back, or whether I would sell it at the hock shop. I would sell furniture on Marketplace, credit cards, personal loans, you name it. So it was almost like stealing from Peter to pay for Paul. So there was always this shifting of finances around, borrowing money, coming up with lies, telling people lies about why I needed to borrow money. Someone's hacked my bank account, got no money, or, they took too much money out. I've got to wait for them to give me a refund. I can't tell you how many handbags I've had stolen.
Right.
That's why I've got no money. Yeah. So
Dropped my wallet.
dropped my
can't
wallet.
find it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Kelly, you're nodding away here. Was this the similar situation?
Absolutely.
for you?
Absolutely,
right.
yeah.
So as you were there in this room in the middle of the day at the poker machines or wherever you were, as you probably didn't look around, but if you did look around, who would you see? Would you see other women? Would you see other women your age? Would you see men?
I think it depends on the time of day and what day it was. So we both work. We were working full-time jobs whilst at the peak of our addiction. But I will tell you this, on the weekends, I would be raring to go as soon as the doors opened on a Saturday. Right. Because the compulsion to go and gamble is so strong, nothing else matters. Right. And even if you don't want to go, somehow you find yourself there. So at 10 o'clock in the morning, I used to be down there waiting. I would sit in my car waiting for the doors to open, and there would be usually older women there, like pensioners. Right. Only a handful, but enough for me to notice. At the same time as doors opened, flash your card, would all make our way up to the poker machine and disperse. Or to our favourite corners, obviously. This is the interesting thing. I would look at them and go, oh, you poor miserable ladies, like you must be so lonely, like you're here on a Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So differentiated from them. I was exactly like them, but I just didn't realise it. They were there, I was there for the same reason.
So at what point did you think, I think this is not going well for me? What had to happen for you to realise that you actually were addicted?
Yeah, and I think it differs for a lot of people as well. So for me, I hit rock bottom. Like I had something seriously devastating happen that I am so shameful and felt so guilty over. And for some people it is, relationship breakdowns, husbands or wives threatening to walk out unless they get help. Some people get arrested because they've stolen money because of their addiction. So whatever it is, the fear of going to prison or the fear of getting arrested. So for me, you just get to the point of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's where I got, and I had something really devastating happen. I was really fortunate in hindsight that it did get to that point because I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I was already at the point where I knew this was problematic. I was exhausted because I would work full time and then I would go and spend 8 hours in the club after work. I would be making excuses to get out of work early or chucking sickies because I'd spent the whole night at the club or at the casino gambling. I wasn't present. I had no joy in other people's company. One of my friends described me as just being an empty shell. So it was like automatically going through the motions of life, but really being preoccupied with gambling. So if I was forced to meet a friend for lunch or coffee, I felt like I couldn't get out of it. I would sit there and the whole time I would be like, I don't want to be here. I want to be gambling.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So with all of that stuff, the cars being repossessed, rent not being paid, almost getting evicted, all of that, it forces you to a position where you're just like, I've really got to do something about this. Like, this can't continue. I was exhausted. I just couldn't go on. And I was so suicidal that I needed to get help.
Right.
I mean, we do hear a lot about this very outcome, don't we? Which is absolutely devastating.
Kelly, what happened for you? You had 2 little children?
Well, at the start I did.
Right,
So, my story is similar but a little bit different. I knew that I had a problem with gambling pretty early on, and I sought help for that. So in 2017, my daughter had passed away, and so that was obviously an extremely devastating time for me. And it kind of led me to that escapism. I was going in and gambling, and it was getting progressive. And so I sought help. I actually sought help because I thought I was going to get some power vouchers to help pay my power bills. And when because this is how this is how the mind works when you're in the grips of progressive illness.
There's always a plan.
Yeah.
Good plan, Kelly.
So I thought, oh, great, I'll go down to this service and I'll get some electricity vouchers and I'll pay that off, and then I won't have to explain to my husband why the power's not cut off and continue on the lies that I'd created at home. And so I went down to this organisation and I asked for help, and they said, well, in order to get that kind of help here, you have to sign up and speak to a counsellor.
Right.
And I say fate because I think I was meant to actually land there. Yeah. And it just so happened that the person that I was linked into be my counsellor slash psychologist actually had a gambling specialty.
Right.
There you go.
And so through conversation through him, he was able to get me to expose myself. Yeah. And, I told him about my gambling and so we tried for many years. I worked with him for a few years on and off. I'd get a few months up and I'd go really great and then I'd bust, and this kind of went on and off for a few years. And then he was very supportive of me though, and he didn't give up on me. So I kept on going along, and he encouraged me to go and get my diplomas and study and do those things and follow my career and dreams and hopes and all of those things. And so I did that in between all of these things. And I think for me, though, that when I got a job that was very rewarding and which along my career path, that came with an increase of income. And then I no longer received Centrelink benefits. Oh, yeah. So before, I would be very reluctant to spend my Centrelink income because I knew that was allocated for my children. However, this time, I didn't have anything allocated for my children. This was my own hard-earned money. And that's what really sent me into a different spiral.
Right.
And in the end, I couldn't escape my own mind. I would wake up in the morning thinking about gambling. I would go to bed thinking about gambling. I would be at work, and while I was working, I'm thinking about gambling. Or I'm processing ways how to access money so that I can go and gamble. Or I'm trying to cover up lies that I've told my family because I need to work out another way to get some more money and hide my addiction and hide that from my co-workers and the people that are in my social network. And it really is such a silent killer. It really is. Yes. And I just couldn't escape it. And I just, same as like Caroline, I was to the point where I was driving down the road and I'm picking trees to hang myself on. Like, I'm going to come back at 2 a.m. when no one knows, and I'm going to tie a rope tonight. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it. Right. And when I got to that point, I knew that it was time to reach out and ask for help again. And so I went back to counselling and I asked for help, and I was introduced to a very, very special lady. And I was introduced to her actually 2 years earlier during COVID, and I rejected her help because I was still in denial and I thought that I could do it all on my own. Right. Like me.
Right.
Yeah. Right. However, this time moving forward, I knew that I couldn't do it on my own because my best way of thinking's got me into a really bad place. Yeah. So I need somebody else's way of thinking to help me. Okay. So I did. I reached out and I asked for help. And through my psychologist, he put me back onto this lady. And this lady said, Kelly, come along. I know a great group of people. Just come along and try it out. And so I did. And the welcoming and the love and the support and the connection that I got from that, I haven't gambled since that day.
And the understanding?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
How on earth did one meeting of a group of supportive people stop you from doing something that was so much part of your life and was a compulsion for you up until then?
Listening to other people's journeys, their hope, their experience, their strengths, it gave me hope. I wanted what they had. It empowered me. It was really hard and really difficult at first. I think I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed the first few times I came, I just cried a lot and I felt very vulnerable. But these people, they just kept saying to me, keep coming back.
And you did.
Your tears are welcome here. It's okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I think there's so much, it's so impactful, especially when you're a newcomer and you come into a meeting and you're surrounded by people who, the Kelly...
Two.
Oh, I've just added one. Yeah, 2 years, I'm almost 10, But when I came in, it was like there were people who had 20 years up. And to go, oh my God, like you haven't gambled for 20 years. Yeah. How did you do that? But the understanding of where you've been and then learning how to get to where you want to be and that shared experience in a non-judgmental environment. And there's a lot of, I think, unspoken stuff too when you're sitting with another compulsive gambler, because a lot of it is very hard to put into tangible words about the experience. So it's like Kelly's nodding away.
Yeah. That's right.
Because
I'm going to have a sore neck soon.
And that's the experience in the rooms. Like you go, someone's telling their story and you're there nodding away going, yeah, me too, me too, me too. And it's that compassion and the understanding and the support and the encouragement that's really impactful for long-term recovery and abstinence.
What were other people's experiences like? Were they similar to yours?
There is variance within the rooms, but there's more similarities than differences. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, at the moment, there's a lot of the younger generation coming in and a lot of younger men coming in from sports betting, usually with a history of gaming.
Interesting.
Yes, right. Yeah. Actually, it was interesting because in our research we found that actually the biggest gamble that Australians have is on the scratchies or Powerball and all of that sort of stuff. And we were talking about why is that? And I think we were discussing in the car on the way here, it's because it's such a small ticket item. It's like the $1 into the poker machine.
I can do that.
$1.
I can do that. It's just $1.
It's $2 scratchy. It's a $5 Powerball thing. And it's sort of so easy and it doesn't really mean anything.
And people are not just buying them for themselves. They use them as gifts. They put them in birthday cards. And so it's like people thrive off that kind of stuff. They get excited when they open a card and they've got a $2 scratchy. It's insane.
It is insane.
What was the feeling like when you hit a jackpot or something? And
you know, it's interesting that you asked that question because it's not what you think it would be.
Right.
Early on, I think you had the excitement because it was still very social. So it was like you still had people around you. It was like high-fiving, well done, oh, wow, can't believe whatever the sum was that you won. Towards the end, when it's in full flight, you don't react at all.
Really?
In actual fact, I was so mortified when I hit a jackpot because other people around me would react and I would just want to be invisible.
Right.
I wasn't there to be noticed. I wasn't there to make friends. I was definitely not there to be hit on. So I apologise to all the men that I told to nick off in the most horrific way. But, yeah, it was just so numb, no response whatsoever. In actual fact, what I would do anytime I sort of, for example, got the respins or anything like that, buttons would be pushed. Like I wanted to get through it as quickly as possible because it was too loud and was drawing way too much attention to myself.
Got it. Was it the same for you, Kelly?
Agreed. And a lot of nervousness, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at first it used to be excitement. When you're first starting out, you get that adrenaline rush, like the build-up, like the excitement of getting out of the car and walking in and finding a machine you like and all the fuzzy noise and the smell of the carpet and all of this kind of... It was exciting and it lit up that reward system and you'd only have to win $2 or $3 and you'd be excited about that. But at the end of it, it's actually really depressing and sad. And you don't have that same joy and excitement. It's actually nervousness. It's like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself again? Can't believe I'm here sitting here doing this again. I know I shouldn't be here. I should just get up and walk away. Why can't I leave? Before you're having this self-talk with yourself, by that time you're putting the money in anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. So
you can't walk
it
away.
actually creates a lot of extra despair because you know you've just won, you can't leave now.
I wonder who's seen me. I wonder who's going to go back and tell my husband. And now that I've won, I have to stay here.
Right.
Interesting, because the brain, obviously there's the reward system in the brain.
And now how do I explain to my husband that I've got all this extra money and he's going to think I've been up to no good, and so now I can't take all that amount of money home with me, and then all the justifications come in as to why I could sit there longer and keep playing, or now that I can't explain it to my husband, I should actually spend half of that and put that back into this machine and stay here for even longer. And
I couldn't leave unless I had no money left.
Right. So that was sort of your baseline. line.
So if I hit a jackpot or I got the respins and got, some extra money to play with,
hence being there for
I
another
couldn't
8
go
hours.
home. Yeah. So for me, it was really aggravating, and I would just feel such despair because I knew that was it. I'm tired. I want to go home. I don't want to be here, but I just couldn't.
Well, that puts paid to the myth that gambling's about greed.
It's not about greed.
Not at all. You leave with nothing, and that's including your integrity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow, that's a really good quote right there, isn't it?
Yes,
Look,
indeed.
I mean, governments make such a huge, humongous amount of money out of gambling. But do you think they are really doing enough to address the problem? Because they have done some things like the cashless card isn't there. There's the self-limiting when you are in a club. There's the little warnings that you get on the end of ads. But what, in your opinion, could they be doing to do just a little bit more, having been in this situation
Or
yourselves?
a lot more.
A lot more, perhaps.
Okay. I know it's a problem, but I really don't have an opinion. And this is the reason why. And I don't get involved in the politics of it all. The reason being is because at the end of the day, I'm responsible for my thinking, my feelings, and my actions. And I don't want to get into a situation where I'm pointing the finger at the government or at the ads or at the clubs. Yes, they've got responsibility. Could they be doing more? Absolutely. What? That is probably for a whole bunch of smarter people than myself to decipher, because I need to maintain my peace and my connection to God and make sure that I'm well. And when you get wrapped up in all of that external stuff, you also lose sight of your responsibility and taking accountability for your own actions, because I have a choice every day to gamble or not to gamble. And knowing that the first bet is my choice, anything that happens after that is my powerlessness over gambling. So all I have to do each day is not gamble and pass on the message to other people.
Right.
Wow. Is there anything that you think would have stopped you when you were getting into the addiction from an outside source, from, say, a government source, or would there have been anything that would have stopped you in your tracks or not?
I think if someone really wants to gamble, they'll go and gamble. So whether it's they're self-excluded, they'll find a way around it.
Yeah.
There's so much access now online and in person. The same way in terms of like getting access to money to gamble. If you're that desperate, and that's what it is, it's desperation to go and gamble, because the compulsion to gamble far outweighs any thought of consequences. So whilst you're aware it's a problem and there are going to be consequences, it's not enough to stop you.
Yes. Yeah.
So if there's a means, if there's a way, we'll find that way to go and gamble. It's not until we become willing to say and surrender to the addiction and surrender our lives to God that we're ready to actually start to face the addiction for what it is.
Yeah.
So did you guys meet at the same support group, or where did you guys actually
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did.
Yep. 2 years ago.
Yes.
I got that right this time.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
great.
Kelly's come into the rooms and
And you
so we
thought,
met
I
there.
like this girl. There's something about her.
Yeah.
She's laughing. I don't know if that's true.
We don't pass judgment. We just accept people for who they are.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. That's right,
It's
Kelly.
really interesting. There's a part of our brain that lights up with eye contact, and yes, like that. And it's an understanding that goes between people. In fact, in one of the African languages, to say hello to someone with eye contact, the words are, I see you. And that's, I imagine, what it's like for a group of folks that have a shared background
Reason
like that.
to be there.
I think a lot from what I hear when I talk to a newer member after their first meeting in the rooms is the relief.
Yes.
And I know for me too, that's what I felt the most in that early stage was it's now out in the open. I'm not bearing this secret by myself anymore. And the relief and the release that you get from that is so incredible, because it's such a heavy burden to bear by yourself. So in the rooms you get to share that with other people. A problem shared is a problem halved and all that. And it just makes it so much easier.
Totally. Tell us about the impact the gambling addiction had on your families or friends.
It took away all my time, and not just my physical time. Like, I could would be there physically, but mentally I wasn't present because I was so preoccupied with the thoughts of gambling or how to explain that I haven't paid this bill, or how do I hide that I don't have any money left, or how do I get money before my husband comes back from his work trip to make sure that there's groceries in the cupboard so that he doesn't know that I'd spent the grocery money on pokies. And like, I wasn't physically present. And it takes away the relationship that you have with your family. You're becoming deceitful, so you're not being honest. So you've got a facade on, and even to your own family, you're no longer your true authentic self anymore. And so they're not getting the true version of you anymore, and that breaks down relationships and families, and it has a huge impact on everybody around you.
Yeah, it's like what you were saying when you had to go to a lunch with someone, but basically your mind was somewhere else.
Oh, just completely empty inside, And, you know, you lose relationships along the way. You know, I've had relationships break down, and a lot of lying too. Like, there were times where, you know, I had partners call me and go, "Where are you?" And I would, "I'm in a meeting," because I'm so important. You know, I've got things to do. I would be in a club gambling, or I would be in a club gambling and would not answer anyone's phone call. Because I knew if I did, they would hear the in the background.
Yeah.
That's
right.
So it's all about maintaining that secret and that facade, and, you know, the mask that you're wearing. And
The landlord's calling and you're sitting in a gaming venue.
Not a good
Like, no.
I'm just doing some research into gambling for a little podcast I'm doing. A schnitty.
Wow.
Do you think everybody is as prone to becoming addicted to gambling?
No.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
because
no.
you know what? Here's a disclosure. I am actually scared to go into a pokey thing because I'm worried that I will become addicted. Like, I feel like I'm actually really scared. I just stay away. And I don't know if I would. I don't know if I'm an addictive personality.
And you're never going to find out.
I know, that's right. I don't want to find out.
Well,
But
I've been in some
Yeah.
gaming venues and taken my husband along with me for the ride multiple times.
Yeah.
And he's one of those people that he could spend $5 and that's the only $5 he'd spend in 4 hours.
Yeah, right.
Did not faze him at all. He not interested.
Yeah, right,
But for me, $5 was like a pinch of salt. Like, that's what is that?
Yeah. So you both think that it's not everybody who will...
No, there are lots of people that can go and once a year on the Melbourne Cup, a flutter, a lotto ticket here or there, and they put the lotto ticket in the drawer and they forget they even bought it. If you're a compulsive gambler, you know where every cent is, you know where you've hidden every dollar, you know where every lotto ticket is, you go hunting for it. Yeah, so some people can just put $5 in and go, "Oh, it's not my day, I'm going home." And people like us, we put $5 in and it's quickly followed up with 50, then 500, then 5,000, and it just escalates from there.
How much do you think you have lost over the years? This is a very personal question, Caroline.
I would hate to calculate it, but I do know it would sit somewhere around the 500,000, if not more mark. Yeah.
Don't think about that now because we've moved on and you're supported, you're loved, you're cared for. So how much does faith, you mentioned a faith in God, how much does that come into play in a group like this and in staying away from this terrible addiction?
It is a spiritual program, but you don't need to be religious or believe in God to attend. We welcome all and just come as you are. I was very broken when I came in and I was just welcomed with such love and kindness and compassion. But for me, I also found that it was a progressive evolution with me finding God. Even though I was raised Catholic, and I went to Sunday school and I went to church and I did all that stuff. I was confirmed and, you know, did my Holy Communion as a child. And then, you know, as what happens, life gets in the way, all that sort of deteriorated. I would still pray to God, even when I was gambling, and I would pray for him to kill me. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You know, things like big truck would pull up beside me that had one of those big containers on. You know, we're going around the corner together. God, please let that container just fall on top of me and squash me. I just couldn't take it anymore. Now I pray, and I pray for other things, and I usually pray for other people a lot. And I give thanks, and I'm so grateful that God doesn't do what we think's best. He does what he thinks is best.
Yes.
You know, when I first came in, there was a lot of talk about having a higher power and connecting to that higher power and doing prayer and meditation, which I did, but it evolved over time to a lot of people come in and the room or the people in the room's their higher power. So it's really important to get off your own will and your own thinking and to open yourself up to something greater than yourself. Yeah. It also stops the victim mentality as well, because let's face it, the world is not just, it is not kind. There's a lot going on. And for me personally, I had no toolkit to deal with any of that. But with my relationship with God and the faith that I have, it carries me through any situation I face because I know there's a purpose. And whilst I don't understand what that may be at times, because my understanding is not his understanding, my ways are not his ways, I just trust that it is for the best, whether it is to take me in the direction that he wants me to go, teach me something that I need to learn. And I'm really grateful that I've had this experience, as horrific as it was and demoralizing as it was and painful, and those things in the past will never leave me, even though the guilt and the shame has subsided because I've done a lot of work around that stuff. But if it wasn't for this experience, I wouldn't be the person who I am today, and I wouldn't be able to share those experiences and provide help to other people that are going through it. And it's changed my life. I'm a completely different person. I'm confident. You know, I had no self-esteem before. Yeah, not at all. Yeah, no confidence. The things I would say to myself, you wouldn't say to your worst enemy. And all of that has left me because of these experiences and because of my faith in God.
Wow.
And so with the group and all of that, getting to that point, do people keep coming to the group, or do you sort of get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm okay now, I'm done? Or...
I think, you know what, is when you brought up sort of the government initiatives, a lot of them are short term. So with the fellowship that we both belong to, it's long term because there is no cure for a gambling addiction.
Right, okay.
But it can be arrested. It can be mitigated. It can be managed. And you do that through long-term management and maintenance, and turning up to meetings as often as you can get to them is one way of doing that, and maintaining the relationships that you find in the room. Some people come to one meeting and go, it's not for me. That's all right. We might see them in 10 years' time. Like, we'll be there when they decide that they've had enough and they're sick and tired and they've hit their rock bottoms. And then some people come and they bust and they come back and they bust and they come back and they bust and they come back. And that's all right. We're there when they come back and we just say keep coming back. And some people come and they're around forever.
Okay. Kelly, what's been happening for you in a spiritual journey? Has there been a spiritual journey?
My journey's a little bit different. I did have a connection with God, I believe, as a younger person, but I think addictive behaviours took that away from me. And also being an Indigenous person, cultural ways is a bit different to religious ways. And so I was a bit lost in where I fit in with all of that. And then, like I said, after my daughter had passed away, you know, I had a resentment against God. But I think coming into the fellowship and being around other people and then doing some work, so we've got some step work that we do, and particularly, you know, getting to step 2 and understanding a power greater than myself and what that looks like for me. So at first I was not sure what that was and how I would look at that. And as I progressed and I went on to do step 4, and step 4 we look at character defects, and and I got to internalize myself, and I was able to put some dots together, and something magical happened. Like I can't describe it. Something come over me, and it was just, I just can't even describe it to you, but something happened to me and I found myself surrendering to God, like I'll get emotional, sorry.
No, it's okay.
But that's the whole idea of this.
And sometimes that can also carry a bit of guilt and shame too, being an Indigenous person and living in cultural ways and then saying, I believe in God now. That can sometimes carry a bit of a heavy weight too. But I can't explain. It's not a coincidence. I can't explain all of these things that have been put into my life. You know, being a 12-year-old girl and reading The River of Life, and then being put into this place where I met my psychologist to then later on find out that this man's a religious man.
Right.
And then coming into a fellowship, and it's a spiritual fellowship. However, it can have a religious connection.
Oh, yeah, it's got God's hands all over it, you know,
So
absolutely. Yeah,
I just feel like that God's been pulling me towards him, and whether I've wanted to know that or accept that, and that's something that I'm still working on. I'm still working on my relationship with God.
We're
and
all a work in progress.
yeah, and you know, I still have doubts and I still have questions, but I have learnt one thing, that it's just accept it. Like, stop trying to analyse God and just accept him and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And enjoy all the things that I have in my life right now.
Yeah. So where is your life at right now?
I have peace of mind. I have freedom. I can choose. I have a loving family. Life's not perfect. We have ups and downs, but I have the skills and the tools now to cope with those things when they come. And I have connection with other people to support me when I can't do it on my own.
It's interesting because you mentioned that word toolbox, I think you said before, the idea of having those things around you that you can use to, you know, when things go bad, this is what I do. This is my mechanism, rather than going to the pokies.
How often does the group meet?
Usually once a week, but there's plenty of meetings around Sydney.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of meetings to get to. So some people will do, when I first started, I was doing 5 or 6 meetings a week. Now I generally do about 2. So there's plenty of meetings for people to get to.
Lovely. Okay. And are those meetings specifically for folks with gambling addictions or other addictions as well?
We specifically belong to a fellowship for gambling addiction, but there are other fellowships out there for other addictions.
Right. Yeah.
So you think ultimately the solution has to lie with yourself. You can't overcome this any other way. You need to be in a place that supports you to actually make that change yourself.
Well, they say the opposite of addiction is connection.
Right.
And that's connection with yourself too.
Yeah.
So when you're able to connect with yourself, then you're able to build relationships with other people.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got a connection to God, because I find it's very hard to want to go back to that kind of life when you've got a strong connection to God.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little story. With my evolution back to God, I just had this, people say like he was talking to you, I had this niggling feeling or thought in my head that just kept repeating itself to read the Bible and to start at Revelations, mind you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The big one. Easy one piece of paper, right? Yeah. And I kept ignoring it and ignoring it and ignoring it, and it just would not go away. So I bought myself a Bible and I was like, right, let's read this Revelations. And I did. And then I read it again.
You went, what the heck?
Oh, my God.
What's going on here?
We're in for some trouble.
Okay.
Yeah. And then started from the very beginning.
Right.
And then I had that go to church, and it wouldn't leave me until I went to church. The first church that I went back to, interestingly, how funny is this when we talk about no coincidences, it's all by God's design, was the priest on that day was the priest from another church where I grew up who had done my Holy Communion.
Oh, my goodness.
And
okay.
he was talking in his little speechy thing that he does after the gospel about gambling addiction. And I've looked up and just gone, I have received the message loud and clear.
Thanks God, I got it now. I got it.
Yeah,
I see you.
Yeah.
And girls, how you talked about just a bit earlier about you're now employing people, and what sort of difference has this made in your kind of attitude towards people that you employ and your attitude
I
towards
think that, first of all, everything's not black and white for me anymore. There's a lot of grey area, and I do much more interested in getting to know my staff. They're not numbers. They're not a means to an end. They're not there to just work and grind them to the ground. They're people. They have families, and I take the responsibility of managing the company in a way that is beneficial to them so that they can provide for their families. So that's managing resources, for example, and it's a great motivator for me not to return to gambling because those resources would disappear pretty quickly.
They would.
And I don't want to be doing that to anybody. But, in terms of being more present and paying better attention, so when they're struggling, I can reach out and say, what are you struggling about? The door's opened. What do you want to talk about? I've had staff who, I've sent to rehab and AA and GA. And before, I was so consumed by gambling, I would have not paid attention to any of that. I wouldn't have noticed if someone else was struggling.
Yeah.
Because the addiction is very selfish.
Yes.
Very selfish. You're focused on yourself.
Self-consuming.
Meeting your own needs, and you don't worry about anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said before, the consequences, even though you're aware of them, they're not a factor.
Yeah.
Do anything about it.
What are relationships like for you now, Kelly?
Yeah, they're healthy and they're wonderful, and I get to spend time and be present with people, and I'm good.
So, girls, if someone is listening to this and thinks, okay, I know I've got a problem now, or has acknowledged for a long time that they've got a problem, or they have a family member or someone they love who also has a problem, what should they do?
Get to a meeting.
Okay.
Get to a meeting. Yeah. Speak to a family member, speak to a friend.
Yep.
Also, let them know. I have found through my experience that the more honest and genuine you are, the better the reception. So it's very hard for people not to go or say anything but good things and want to be there and support you if it's genuine and it's honest. So don't let fear dictate what you're going to do, because the addiction, any addiction really, its driver is fear. It wants to keep you in a state of fear of,
I guess shame too.
the shame, the guilt.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's a lot of fear that goes on, and that's why we run away and we hide behind the addiction. So, if you want to talk about spirituality, there's the spiritual battle between good and evil, right?
Yeah.
Because God didn't create us to be fearful.
Yeah.
Did he?
Or alone.
All you hear in the Bible is do not be afraid, do not be afraid. But I was constantly afraid. I was fearful of absolutely everything. So get to a meeting. There's a website. There are other services too that you can tap into. For me, a big part of my journey was not just the fellowship, was also financial counselling, gambling counselling. I saw a psychologist. I also tapped into a fantastic service in Fairfield called Oakdean House Foundation. They do a life choices program, which helps you understand the addiction and understand the reasons or the problems that you have that lead to you seeking that, and teaches you how to manage it as well.
Right.
And I think, I just like to say that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Because addiction can be a really lonely path, but you aren't alone. And there are people out there that are just like you that want to help you. They want to take your hand and take you with them. So
But you're not going to meet them unless you speak
you've
up.
got to speak up.
Yeah, that whole secrecy thing. Ringing that out. Wow.
And we do get well.
Yeah.
There is hope.
Yes.
We can recover.
Yeah, we're looking at you.
Oh, yeah. Like the life I'm leading today, when we talked earlier about the dream world of a compulsive gambler that I never achieved while I was gambling, by the way. It was just a lot of pain and misery.
Yeah.
I'm living beyond my expectation or anything I could have dreamed up today in recovery because of recovery. Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Carol and Kelly, thank you so
My
much
goodness.
for just absolutely sharing and bearing your souls to us, and your courage for coming out and speaking like this. I mean, it's just fantastic, and we know this is going to help a lot of people.
I hope so. If there's anyone listening,
Absolutely.
reach out and ask for help.
Yeah.
You're not alone, like Kelly said. Your addiction will try and convince you that you are, but you're not.
yes.
You're not. And you're not the only one. We've been there and we've managed to get through it, and you can too.
Yeah. And if you're coming up with reasons why you can't speak out, that's your self-justification talking.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're very good at creating permission slips for ourselves.
That's right.
Indeed. Yeah. Thank you so much.
No,
Very
thanks
much
for having
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. If you're going through a hard time, please call Lifeline in Australia on 13 11 14. Or if impacted by sexual assault, domestic or family violence, call 1-800 RESPECT.
Thanks for your company. What did you think of this episode?
Well, tell us everything, Gorgi, with a cheeky review on Apple Pods. We'd love to know what you reckon about our topics and our guests. And us.
And we look forward to your company next time on She Wasn't Born Yesterday.
Hope 1032. Thanks for listening.